Last, 2 days ago, in fact, um, I flew down from Nevada City to San Carlos, which is near Palo Alto, because many of you know Linda Gerber. Most of you probably don't, but she is a longtime member, and she's dying of a brain tumor. And she was saying she was just hanging in there to see me again, and so that her son, Jimmy, would be able to come down. He's going to come up from San Diego. He's coming up Monday. But so I went to say goodbye to her and spent some time with her, with David and Asha and her husband Jim, who flew me there. And it's a sweet experience to see somebody who is dying in grace, because she's full of devotion. She just kept saying, it's all wonderful, wonderful. Her vocabulary is limited. She can't somehow she can't remember nouns often, but she can remember verbs. Very strange. But her spirit is still really beautiful. Anyway, from there, then I went back to Sacramento because we had a hearing with the judge yesterday, all about this SRF thing. And again, I suppose many of you don't know what this is all about, but for 12 years now, they've been suing us for a variety of reasons, all of them connected with the evident wish to destroy us. It's too bad. One thing that I was very pleased to hear was somebody who is the nephew of one of their directors was up here recently, and he told his aunt that nobody that I talked to at Ananda had anything negative to say about SRF. This is right, and it's beautiful. Whatever happens, we all have to go through our trials. What comes of itself, let it come. But we cannot simply be passive. We have to stand for what we believe in. And I've been hoping, but unfortunately isn't going to be so, I've been hoping I could go back to Italy on August 26th because I wanted to get the tail end of the retreats for the summer and so on. Now it looks as if I won't be back until the beginning of November. But at any rate, if it's so, it's so. Meanwhile, I'm working away on writing, and actually I almost am hesitant to confess it, but the truth is that Hope for a Better World, which actually I think reads very well, you wouldn't believe the thousands of corrections I've been making in that published work. We had the problem that we had publication deadlines and I had to get it done. But now, at my leisure, I can look at this book and I like it, it's beautiful. But still, slash here, slash there. And every page is black with many a shame, as Sri Yukteswar spoke about every man's past. But you'll like the new version, but I don't say that I don't myself like the other. It's almost every change is simply stylistic. But it's such an important book that I just want to get it right, and that's what I've been working on. Also, I've been working on what I read you last Saturday on the Book of Masters, which we're calling God is for Everyone. And the third chapter, I felt while I was working on it that I wasn't in the driver's seat. I couldn't feel what was being said. There were certain things that aren't Master's ideas that have been intruded on them, and it's not the way Master taught. It's not the way he thought, and it just didn't add up philosophically. So I've been having to live through that. It's a lot harder. I can work with Master's ideas easily because I've spent my life tuning into those. But these are somebody else's thoughts. He was a pedant and wrote very pompously, and it was sort of the idea that people see Master when he, I've explained this to those of you who were here before, that Master when he came to this country, knew English somewhat well enough to lecture in it, but he didn't feel comfortable writing. I feel that way after years in Italy, that I'm very comfortable lecturing in Italian, but I'd be scared to write it, because when you write it, your mistakes are glaringly there. And this is why he asked a friend of his who had an MA degree to write it out in English. And this is the book, Science of Religion, which is Master's book because it's his ideas, but it's ghostwritten by dear Ananda. And now I'm trying to write it in such a way, because those were the days when people seemed to think that the way to really impress people is to be pompous. And the more pompous, the more they'll take you seriously, even if you're talking nonsense. And it isn't that the book was nonsense, but he had that style of writing, and the nonsense sometimes slipped in. So this is what I am working on. Now, we came back after the hearing and so on, having had a couple of big days. I'm going to go to the play tonight because I was a little tired yesterday. So tonight I'll go to the children's play. Everybody says it's fabulous. Leela wants to go again tonight. And this probably means that Catherine and Peter will give the service tomorrow. I find when I am out doing things Saturday night, I just don't feel like talking Sunday morning. So I hope you'll forgive me. But anyway, I don't expect to be here. Some miracle might force me to, but I doubt that I'd do this to Peter and Catherine. It wouldn't be fair to them. And so I don't expect to be here tomorrow. On Wednesday, before I went down there, I saw these children, and before them, I had an interview with Jeff from Communities Magazine. It was a very interesting interview, for me at least. He's going around not just the country, but the world, interviewing people in different communities to see their slant on it. And he believes very much, as we do, in the importance of communities. So we talked for, how long was it? About an hour, wasn't it? Half an hour. And
It was about an hour.
an hour, was it?
Yeah.
An hour. Well, you see, it went quickly. And at the end, he asked me a question. It was just time to wind up, and I didn't answer it as well as I liked. He said, how have you handled the question of position, praise, popularity, all that fame and stuff like that? Has it been a test for you? And I said, it never has been, but I gave a bad answer. And I want to correct that, because what I really wanted to say is, I think, important. If it's not been my particular problem to want to be famous and powerful and all that, which I have never cared for, I put it mistakenly, and well, I've had those things in past lives, because in this life they've never meant anything to me. But later I was thinking, that stops it at a dead end. That leaves me not having that problem, but we don't have any problems, any leaders with that problem. It isn't me. And any time that you find yourself ending with accepting that a particular quality is yours, you haven't understood it yet. And I realized immediately that the real understanding of that point is that when your energy is going outward to help people, you're not thinking of that energy coming back to you. This is the important truth, which I think in everything that we do, we should never consider or take credit to ourselves, because we should always realize that it's what we do that makes us that way, and if we did differently, we'd be different. You are the result not of talents, not of gifts, not of qualities. You are the result of actions that reflect those qualities. But if you change your action, this is fine when you're acting right and you feel good. But when you don't do well and you aren't feeling good about yourself, it's very important to think in terms of what can I change, not in my qualities, but the way I do things. How you treat the world, how you treat other people, where your energy goes, is it going outward or is it coming inward? This is a very important point. Somebody said to me, and I've quoted this to you before too, that you have some wonderful people here. I said to him, if you meet one or two people like that, you might say, yeah, they're wonderful people. But when you meet a whole community like that, you've got to say it's what they're doing that makes them that way. And if you want to define it as wonderful, fine. But what they are, what makes Ananda people different from other groups of people, is what they're doing. I remember this I said to you also recently. I said to a friend of ours in Southern California something about people reflecting the group that they're with. So you can often see what group a person belongs to just by certain qualities that he has. And he said, yeah, I can see that with Ananda people. And I was surprised because living at Ananda, I don't think that way. But in fact, I think we're all such a bunch of eccentrics that I don't know how you can fit people into categories. We court eccentricity, you might say. But he said, I said to him, well, how come you say that? What do you mean? He said, well, they're all open. They listen to other people. They respect other people for what they are. And a number of things like that. I like that. That's what we try to encourage here. And that's what I would like to say, encourage it in yourself. So if you see some quality in yourself that you may not like or you may want to change or whatever, don't think this is what I am, because you aren't that. You are a reflection of whatever actions and attitudes you manifest. And you are a conglomeration of all kinds of things that you've developed over countless incarnations. It's a strange thing. Now, okay, I'm going to take a drink here. You notice how I take it off to the side? I don't think there's anything in my bone structure that forces me to... And my dad did exactly the same thing. Why? I don't suppose that I was drawn to that family just because he... Still, I have to admit that because we were so very different in so many ways, I used to think, why was I born to him? But the older I get, the more I realize, I can understand. But the thing is that we're, in even tiny little ways, I've often puzzled because when I hang my clothes, I hang them in a certain direction on the hanger. And almost everybody who hangs clothes for me hangs them in the opposite direction. I think, now why? Why would that be? I used to think it was because they were left-handed, but no, they're not. And Jyotish I asked him to explain it. He said, well, it's obvious. And so he did something that was completely strange to me. But it worked for him. What I'm saying is that even in the smallest ways, we're particular only because of the ways we've done things in the past. And those memories are not just developed in a lifetime. You see little babies in their crib, each one unique, each one different. There was an article in The Union, the local newspaper, many years ago, some 25 years ago or so. This woman said that I used to believe that boys and girls were different only because of the way they'd been raised. And so I determined I would raise my two children, a boy and a girl, exactly alike. And she said after a while, I just had to give up. I realized they just couldn't, there was nothing I could do to make them what I wanted them to be. They just were themselves. And the little girl liked playing with dolls, and the boy loved the sound of motorcycles, and so on. This is just hormones. But there's so much more that goes to make a human being. Look at all women, look at all men, they're so different. Each one, and each one also comes into existence as a manifestation of God, not with a blank slate. You're not a blank slate from the beginning, in this sense that you haven't qualities that you've acquired, but you have a bias. You have your own particular, we might call it cosmic gene. God is singing a particular song, as I said before, through you, and it's unique. So that, yes, probably you've been a pirate, and you've been a merchant, and you've been a soldier of fortune, and you've been a general, and you've been this, and you've been that, all sorts of things. But in each case, you are a uniquely you pirate, or uniquely you merchant. Whatever it might be, no one else is ever the same in any role. And it's very wonderful to see how all these different things that you do, still you keep acquiring qualities that reflect something that is central to you. But it takes countless incarnations to produce. I remember somebody saying when we were looking at Master lying on his deathbed, and he was lying in state there in his bedroom, and this disciple said it took countless incarnations to produce a face like that. And how true it is. And how amazing it is that you go through, well, I look at you all here today, you stand on the streets and watch the parade of people passing. Basically, the features of man are not that different. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, ears, some are bigger than others. When I was born, Dad let one of his friends know and got a telegram in return. Do his ears stick out? Because Dad's did. But the thing is that there isn't that much you can do with a face, and yet look how different every face is. And I said that you look like this friend of ours in Italy, but it isn't so much your look, it's something in your consciousness. Each person reflects a consciousness too. And if that consciousness changes, the whole face changes, so that you can't even recognize somebody that you know, somebody that's close to you, if they're going through a difficult time emotionally. Let's say I had that experience once, seeing somebody that I knew very well and could not recognize that person. Strange. But we are so many things, and yet we need to understand that beyond that, we are the infinite, expressing particularly for a little while, and then returning to that state of ultimate perfection again, which has nothing to do with any of these expressions. And yet, an interesting thing is, as Master wrote in his Gita interpretations, that when you attain samadhi, not just samadhi, but nirvikalpa samadhi, when your little soul merges back into the infinite soul, it's God who's become God again. There's no separation. And yet you always remember, and in memory there is separation. You always remember that you, that infinite one, became particularly this one. It's not that you're identified with that at all, but still that always remains in eternity. So that even in, as St. John of the Cross said, if you want to aspire to be everything, try to be nothing. Even if you become nothing, you'll never become nothing. The soul can never be destroyed. And that memory of expression of God in this particular form is eternal. God's consciousness is inconceivable. But this infinite self, which is you, that you will never be lost. And so, when we seek to attune ourselves with God, remember, you're not trying to negate yourself, nor are you trying to exalt yourself, but you're trying to offer yourself into that infinite self. You're trying to say, I am you, you are I. The more you can have of that consciousness, the more you see that your life becomes blessed. it was so beautiful to see Linda, because all she could say, she could talk a little bit. It was very hard to understand her because her words are slurred. She can understand what she hears. She's lucid, but she doesn't have the control over her speech that a person normally would. So all she could say is, "Oh, it's so wonderful." Well, you know, that's what you get into in being in tune with God. Everything's so wonderful you can hardly speak too. I remember a fascinating experience that came to me. I was supposed to give a Sunday service at the seclusion retreat, and I suddenly got a kidney stone attack. I'd never had one before, and boy, that is painful. Women who have given birth and had kidney stone attacks say they'd much rather have have babies. Well, for one thing, they've got something to show for it. But apart from that, the pain is just very intense, and I was quivering like a leaf. And somebody was trying to get me to go and get a hospital, have an ambulance come and take me. And I thought, my God, to go on all those curves in an ambulance, I can't face it. So I was supposed to give the service, and I think I had about 15 minutes to go, and I finally decided I'd better pray for myself. I don't like to, but I said, "Master, if you want me to give this service, you're going to have to take this pain away." And suddenly, just like that, it disappeared. Amazing. The only amazing thing, I mean, the funny thing about it was that while it was going on, I was in such pain I couldn't speak. After it was over, I was in such joy I couldn't speak. And people were thinking, "Oh, poor fellow, he must be suffering." Not at all. But you feel this joy. That's what Linda was showing. This joy that is so intense that really words can't say it, and she could only repeat how wonderful, how sweet, how joyful, how wonderful. But what better sermon? This is what we need to understand, that whatever we are is only the result of what we do. Don't worry about what you are. Don't consider your failings, your weaknesses. They're not important. They aren't you. But say that if I'm this way now, I can change. There's nothing you cannot change. And yes, there's a certain central portion of you that will never change, but that portion is not bad. Neither is it good. It just is. It's God. In that sense, of course, it's good. But there's something in you that's central. That don't think that you've got to imitate somebody else. This is one of the mistakes that people make on the spiritual path. They think, if only I could be like that sonnet of Shakespeare's, when in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and look upon myself. Oh dear, I know the poem. Huh? And trouble deaf heaven with my cries, and look upon myself and weep my fate and curse my fate. Wishing me like to him with friends possessed. Do you remember? Featured like him with friends possessed. This is the way that people are. I'm not going to go on with it. But thank you, because Sonnet 29, I recommend it. Some of his sonnets are just exquisite. But the thing is, this is the human delusion. We think, oh, if only I could be like him or like her. And yet you'll never be like anyone else. Be yourself, but be it in the qualities that those people express. Yes, if they are humble, take that quality. Don't put on the garb of another person's personality. You can't do it. You'll be a failure. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, Better to fail in your own dharma than to succeed in someone else's. You have to be true to your own self, but exalt that self, ennoble that self, purify it, because God wants to do it through you in a particular way. Now, this is what we need to seek to develop in ourselves, and we'll do it by right action. It's just that simple. That's why Master, you'd have thought, because he was the guru, because he was our teacher, because he was there to tell us what to do, you'd have thought he'd sit back and sort of swivel his chair around like this and then look at you and say, you know what's wrong with you? Or he would say, now you remember, Don, that back when you did so-and-so, etc., long spiel. He didn't do that. He gave you things to do. There's that beautiful story about the two boys in his school in Ranchi who were always at each other's throats. And I guess Master tried to get them to make peace, but they wouldn't do it. So Master just put them in the same bed. He did it by action. Well, having to be in the same bed, it was either constant war or enforced peace. So they made peace. But then when it looked as if they were peaceful and good friends finally, he decided to give them a final touch. So he crept to the head of their bed when they were asleep. When they were sleeping, he reached on it, rapped one on the forehead. Hey, why'd you do that? And the other one said, no, I didn't do it. What are you talking about? And he said, no, please don't. I didn't touch you. Okay. So they went back to sleep then. After they were well asleep, Master rapped the other one. I told you I didn't do it. Oh, you. From then on, they were best of friends. But he put us through experiences that would help us to understand things by our experience rather than just by admonishment. This is the real way to teach people. Give people things to do, and this is the real way to teach yourself. Don't just I know somebody said to Master one time who was trying to discipline him, he said, well, you can do it, so you're the master. Master thundered back at him, what do you think made me a master? It was by doing. We have to understand that doing alone is really going to convince us. One time he said to this same disciple something to urging him to change, and the disciple said, yeah, I understand, Master. Master said, you don't understand. If you did, you'd do what I say. Understanding and doing go together. It's not a mental thing. So realize, don't be satisfied with any quality that you have if you take it as your own, because it shows you haven't really understood it right. Don't be satisfied with anything if you can improve your actions even more. But let it be on your actions. Let your energy go outward toward what you do. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot today because I'm going to go to that play. And I hope you all come. If you haven't come, I hear it's great. God bless you.